Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Data Science Leaders Podcast. I am your host, Dave Cole, and today's guest is Sidney Prescott. Sidney, how are you doing today?
I am excellent. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So, Sydney is the global head of intelligent automation at Spotify. And we'll discuss a little bit about what intelligent automation is today. She's on more boards than I can count. She's a graduate of Georgia State University with a degree in philosophy, which I think we'll also get into. I think you have a very interesting background. What we're going to be talking about in our three topics for today, we're going to be talking about diversity in data science. So we're going to be talking about Sydney's journey in becoming a data science leader. We're also going to be talking a little bit about building your own brand. If you're in front of your computer right now or your phone, if you can search on Sidney Madison Prescott in LinkedIn, you'll be amazed at sort of her background and how much she has on her plate today. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about robotic process automation, or RPA, and how to incorporate this into your data science leader toolbox. All right, let's get things going here. Sydney, I think you had sort of an interesting path, but I think it's a path that I hope becomes more normal, right? And becomes a lot less interesting. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a data science leader?
Absolutely. So the journey started in undergrad, actually. I began with an internship. That was really my foray into technology and subsequently kind of the data science, data governance world. So within that internship, I was working with a global payments solution company, and they were really focused on becoming a more digitally aware company. And we did a lot of work around how do you connect all of these disparate databases? How do you make sure that the timing of the data is on point? How do you make sure that the data that you're receiving is accurate? That it is something that we can rely on as a firm. And I learned a so much about the importance of data quality, data governance in relation to all of these different automation platforms, whether they are SaaS systems, running in the cloud, whether they are on-premise systems, legacy systems like mainframes, which are still very much out there. And it was a great opportunity for me because it really set the stage for me to really prioritize the importance of data in my career as I moved forward. After that role, so I was sitting within the configuration and asset management side of the global software team there. And so within that team, we began to realize that we really didn't have a handle on exactly what was happening within these systems in relation to I'll say the integrity of the data. And so we began an initiative which I helmed up, and this was really my first foray into data quality, where I led a global team on data quality and governance. And in that role, we specifically looked at all of the systems, whether they were third-party vendor systems, homegrown systems, whether they were SaaS solutions, on-prem, and we were looking specifically at the ETL. So how do we extract, transform, right, all this data? And how do we make sure that it's on point and that it's doing what we need it to do? And through that, we initially started with just pure analysis. What are our expectations for all of these systems in relation to the business processes that are running on them? And we quickly realized that our expectations for the data did not match the reality of the extracts coming out of these systems. And so
Right.
that began this huge journey into how do we uncover the issues? How do we start walking through a process of remediation of these data issues? And then how do we also maintain the integrity of the data once we get it to a state that we believe is viable for our business in the future? How do we maintain that? How do we make sure that we keep an eye on what's happening kind of underneath the hood, so to speak? And so I really just took that and ran with it in terms of where my career progressed, which then that led to a foray in intelligent automation. And that deals more specifically with your robotic process automation, machine learning, eventually artificial intelligence, usually optical character recognition, all of which heavily rely again on data, making sure that we are doing right by our business stakeholders in relation to their needs, in regards to specifically the data that is coming out of the system and the decisions that are being made, the business decisions off of that data.
Okay. One question I do have for you, Sydney, is you had, you were getting your major in philosophy, and it sounds like your internship, I don't know, maybe there were some philosophical conversations in the hallways there, but most likely it didn't like it fall under the, the philosophy sort of genre. How did you get that first internship? Like, how did you find a company that was willing to sort of take a chance and have you, work in the area of data?
That I would say was a little serendipitous. When I went out for the internship, what I was looking for at the time is an internship where I could be involved in, I'll say, legal contracts. And more specifically, I was really interested in kind of software contracts, how companies understand what their obligations are in relation to their partnerships with other vendors and businesses. And interestingly enough, the internship that I landed was within the configuration asset management team because they were going through a huge transformation of all of their kind of contract obligations around software. And so they wanted to bring me in for the internship to help review and understand the ownership policies around all of the contracts that were signed, and also the utilization of the software. Are we truly using all of the software that we've purchased, or are we underperforming in relation to what we purchased versus what we actually use? And I quickly, as I was working in all of these kind of software contract true ups, I started beginning to get projects passed me in relation to the challenges that were happening in the environment. And so these were a lot of kind of different siloed projects that were going on to help clarify why outputs from different systems were not where they needed to be, clarification on why certain systems were underperforming in relation to their ability to handle the amount of data that was being put through them. And that's what really piqued my interest around moving, I'll say, away from the contract side and more towards the process reengineering, process excellence side. So it was a little, I'll almost say, like on the job migration of what my initial role was versus where I ended up.
Right.
But then I really took to that, and I embraced, I'll say, the opportunities that came to me to work on those different projects that didn't fall into that initial category of what I was working on.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, there's starting to be, as you probably know, specializations in college coursework that allow you to come out of college with a specialty in or potentially even a major in data science, and I think but I also think that a lot of people can learn data science on the job, and I'm certainly fall into that camp. My background was in engineering, but it was not anything data science related. So what you're a female leader, data science leader. What have been some of what recommendations would you give other sort of up and coming sort of female leaders as they're looking to go down a similar path of you? I mean, what sort of challenges have you faced in your journey?
Oh, many challenges. So I think the first piece of advice I would give is, if you truly have a passion for, data science, data quality, data governance, don't let anyone steer you away from that passion. I feel as if, I'll say, some technologists, particularly when it comes to working with women, people of color, they tend to to give you advice to steer clear of certain technology areas. And in my experience, those are the areas that usually are the most fascinating and the ones that you never know whether or not you actually have a passion that lies within that particular domain. So I think that's the first piece is, you know, don't necessarily take the advice from others to steer clear of certain areas. Allow yourself the ability to, I'll say, dive in to domain. I would say domain specialties that you may not be comfortable with. That's another huge piece is challenge yourself. Make sure
Right.
that you are always seeking out new opportunities to learn and to grow. And as you said, a lot of that growth happens on the job, and
Yeah.
you never know what doors you're closing by blocking yourself off to those kind of new cool things that you can jump into. And I would say that for the majority of my career, the really big moments have come as a result of me kind of saying yes to everything. Like, yes, I want to try that.
That we're going to
Yes,
talk about that. Yes, we're going to talk about that in a second. Yeah, that's an understatement. But I think what I'm hearing you say, which I think is sort of also a philosophy that I've held over the years, is I mean, first of all, the world of data science is one of the fastest paced, sort of ever changing sort of genres out there, areas out there that you can sort of specialize in. So you have to be open to learning new things, right? And I think what is important here is as a data science leader is recognizing your team's aptitude for learning. And I think you're obviously a great example of that. And that segues into kind of the next section, right? Which is how you've built your brand. And when I look at all the things that you have achieved and are currently doing today, it is astronomical. I mean, you're on a number of advisory boards. You probably can tell me how many. You're one of the founding members of Chief, which is a network focused on helping women rise to the executive ranks like yourself. You're also getting your master's of science at Cornell Law School. You also are a book author. All of this you have done in a relatively short period of time. And I just, I think, first of all, how have you done all this?
so I would say being very focused and very purpose driven. So that is really, I would say, at the core of everything I do. Is why am I doing this? What do I hope to achieve out of this?
Mm-hmm.
And do I feel that this is going to further my development in some way of my skill set, personal abilities, whatnot? So I always just start with what is the purpose of anything that I want to take on, be involved in, whether it's writing a book, whether it's joining a board, mentoring other women in technology. And then the other piece is just being laser focused. I am, someone who loves to achieve clearly a lot of things, but I'm also laser focused once I set a goal for myself. So I set a goal for myself, for example, that I wanted to start to grow my ability to advise other companies in relation to technology. There's that saying that every company now is a tech company, which couldn't
Mm-hmm.
be truer. And when you think about the expertise that is needed when we talk about data science, when we talk about automation, when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about emerging tech, there is a very distinct gap between the needs of all of these different companies and the body of talent that exists to be able to work on these projects and these initiatives, and to even just advise, to coach other executives in relation to technology initiatives. And so I saw that gap in the marketplace, and particularly that gap is even larger when you think about women, people of color. And I said, I would absolutely love to be able to share my knowledge and give something back to
Mm-hmm.
different organizations that may be looking for this level of knowledge, and they just don't have access to someone who would have the time, the bandwidth to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I framed this agenda item as you sort of building your brand, but as I think about it and I hear you talk, I think I don't think that was not your intention. Like your intention with a lot of this was personal growth and to help others. Like it seems like it's a mix of both, right? You're trying to, whether it be you writing a book or going back to school, obviously there's a lot to be learned there, a lot to be shared with others. But then when you're a lot of the boards that you're members of and the advisory work that you're doing, to me, just when I look it over, it rings of you just wanting to give back. How did you get into that path? Where was that first advisory opportunity? How did that first advisory opportunity like come to fruition?
Interestingly enough, it actually started from, I believe, a conversation on maybe LinkedIn. I think
Okay.
that is where it started, which then does go back to personal brand, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's
Okay. Yeah.
important to make sure,
Yes.
right, that your
Yes.
personal brand is
Yeah.
in
Your LinkedIn.
such a state
Yes.
where
Your
someone
LinkedIn
would
page
come.
needs to have enough content for someone to reach out
Yes.
and want to have you advise them. Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And you need to build a body of work, right? That leads someone to think,
Absolutely.
yes, this is someone that I want on my advisory board. So that is definitely the first piece. I think that having, I'll say, a brand that had started to emerge, like my own personal brand, that did really help me in terms of getting, I'll say, companies to start to pay attention
Right.
to wanting to have me on their advisory boards. And that first opportunity, it was, interestingly enough, it was a nonprofit mental health organization out of Ireland. And
Mm.
I was really, so I'm very passionate about mental health, and it's very close to my heart in terms of a cause that I like to support. And so it felt like, again, that kind of serendipitous, perfect alignment of a cause that's near and dear to me, and then also the fact that they were looking for some really innovative ways to include technology in their nonprofit efforts to advance the mental health of children and teenagers.
That's awesome. And out of curiosity, like what sort of time commitment do some of these advisory activities, just to set the stage, if somebody's out there wanting to help and give back, like I'm sure it varies, but like what does that look like?
Yes, so it varies from company to company, but typically, and then it also varies depending on if it's nonprofit versus a
Sure.
for-profit company. But relatively speaking, you're probably looking at not a huge time commitment. I mean, most of my boards, I'd say maybe 15 or so hours a month max is what I would usually spend.
Hmm.
Sometimes a little bit more if there's like something really big going on within the organization, or a big shift, big leadership shift or something like that. Or if we're throwing some sort of event and they want me to advise on that. But typically speaking, it's around 15, 20 hours a month max.
Hmm.
I have seen some advisory positions ask for more time, and I've seen some ask for less. So
Right.
it really just also depends on the maturity of the organization itself.
Right. And then selfishly, like I know I've had conversations with others as well in an advisory capacity. I always, I don't know about you, but I always take away something from those conversations. So if you want to look at it, from a selfish standpoint as well as a giving back standpoint, I do think that there's something to be learned, right? In having those conversations, there's new challenges that you see, when you're talking to other companies and seeing how they're thinking about the problem. Might you might walk away thinking like, hey, like I learned something, right?
Absolutely. It's one of those really unique opportunities where you have the ability to learn about the way that you work with others. How to tackle challenges when it comes to leadership, team building, right, on a globally distributed kind of virtual world. And then, as you said, you also get to see how other companies adapt and meet challenges. And I always get inspired by that work because
Hmm.
a lot of times it will spark something in my mind about a challenge that my own team is facing or my own company is facing. So it's really great because it gets the wheels turning outside of kind of your business as usual day to day things
Yeah.
that you do within your existing full time role.
Yeah, I think the way to kick this all off, just to repeat, is actually to build out that LinkedIn page. I mean, that's how you got started, and it sounded like, I mean, am I correct in saying it sort of snowballed from there, where once you updated your LinkedIn page and showed that you were advising one company, then it's like, oh gosh, she's open to advising. Maybe she'll be open to advising my company as well. Is that kind of how it went, or was it each opportunity sort of different?
It did. So it pretty much was, I did make a conscious decision
Mm-hmm.
to curate my LinkedIn. So that was a very intentional thing that I did. I made it a point, anything that I was involved in of significance relating back to my career, that I would make sure that was updated on LinkedIn. And then I also made a conscious effort to post.
All right, so that brings us to our final topic here, which is your job today, your day job, among all these other activities that you have going on. So I want to talk about RPA, or robotic process automation. I mean, quite frankly, I don't know too much about it, but that is, so starting off, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what is RPA and why should I care?
Happy to. So, robotic process automation is, in essence, software robots that mimic the activities that human users take. And for example, this is pretty much anything that a human user does within any given system. So, logging into a certain system, downloading certain reports, pivoting data in those reports, dumping those reports into another file path. We can code a software robot to, in essence, mimic those steps. And then, of course, the benefits of the robot, it's faster than a human, less prone to error, especially with data handling, data manipulation than humans. We can process more transactions faster. So it really enables you to take any manual task that is very tedious, very repetitive in nature. And by automating those steps, as I said, you increase your data quality, you decrease the efficiencies within a given workflow, and you also increase your ability to handle more transactions at a faster rate. So you can really amplify your team's ability to handle much more as a result of leveraging robotic process automation.
Do you have a specific example of it? I think I kind of get it, but like, do you have like a specific example, maybe at Spotify, of that? Like, I mean, also maybe how many of these processes do you have running at any given day?
Yes, so right now we have over 150 robots in production.
Wow.
Those are across a wide variety of business functions. So everything from treasury to tax to internal audit. And I can give you an example of a process that we've automated actually within our ads team. So
Mm-hmm.
the ads team was taking basically screenshots and recordings of different advertisements that were set to run on the Spotify platform. And so this sort of sampling of that audio and visual was a part of our quality control, making sure that any advertisement that another someone had purchased with Spotify, that we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be able to make sure that the quality, the integrity of that ad was there from a digital perspective. And so, as you can imagine, the sheer number of ads and the turnaround time that from someone purchasing an ad to our need to create that visualization, that audio, and then get that ad pushed out to the platform, it didn't leave a lot of time for this very tedious manual testing that was taking place. And so we wanted to make that testing piece more efficient. And so that's where RPA came into play. So we took our robots and we actually were able to mimic those exact steps. So playing the audio back, recording a snippet of that audio to showcase the quality, taking a screenshot of the advertisement, and then putting all of that in a folder for a human. And then all the human has to do is just pull those assets and showcase, yes, we've tested this particular ad. And so that particular bot runs every single day, multiple times a day. So we can have bots running, near 24/7. I won't say total 24/7 because you have maintenance of the systems that they're running on, the VMs that they're running on. But you can get pretty close to that just based on the amount of downtime you need for the servers and whatnot that are running underneath the hood.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And what sort of like what sort of data gets generated from these robots? Like, how do you improve the performance of them? Optimize them, et cetera.
There's a lot of data that gets produced. So the first piece there is data just in relation to, as you said, how are the bots functioning? Are they performing as intended? Are they falling down at any point in any process? And if so, why? So there's kind of, I'll say, operational data from the robots that we receive. There's also data that we gather from the virtual machines that the bots are running on. So from a performance standpoint, how are our machines doing? Can they handle the load in terms of the amount of bots that are running back and forth? We also have process data that is generated as well. And this is more, I'll say, specific to the business process itself, whereby we, in essence, are creating any of the data assets that process typically generates, and then we're pushing those out to the stakeholder. So that could be anything from, it could be as simple as a Excel spreadsheet with a wide variety of data that the bot has populated that's going to get pushed out to the stakeholders. It could be the bot actually populating data in a database within a system. That's also a data output. Or it could be something along the lines of pushing out a report of some sort that then gets dropped for a human to review at some point in time. So, and again, all the data really varies based on the business process, the frequency of the runs, and then also how many systems that particular bot process is touching.
Right. And do you have any idea? I mean, I can just imagine, but of the efficiency, like the cost savings that these bots are sort of saving Spotify, or I know you also did that at your previous job as well. Is there any like rubric on like, each bot saves X amount of time or something like that?
We do. So we have taken a step to look specifically at the number of transactions that each bot is processing, and then also comparing that. So I'll say the automated time savings to the original manual process. So how long did that process take for a human? And we do a basic compare and contrast between, okay, it took a human X amount of time to complete one transaction. It takes a robot now Y amount of time to complete the same transaction. And here is your savings once you multiply that times how the frequency of the bot runs. So to date, we have saved, I want to say, over 75,000 hours
Wow.
in relation to the processes that we've built so far. And that really is just scratching the surface. So we have
Yeah.
a lot of additional projects that we can pull in that we could. I mean, I've seen companies get as high as millions of hours saved through automation. So it really just depends on the speed of growth for your automation program, and also the quality of your use cases. So are you taking on the most manual repeatable processes, and are those transactions usually being made on a daily basis? And that gives you
Yeah.
the bulk that you need in terms of our generating ROI.
Yeah. I mean, on the DSL podcast, we talk a lot about uncovering use cases and partnering with key stakeholders and in drumming up these sort of use cases. And I think, a lot of times it's focused on, generating models to produce predictions and to sort of and finding efficiency gains there. But there's a lot of repetitive processes that your various areas of the business are doing every single day that can be automated away. And that's what I'm hearing, RPA helps with. And I think to your point, like being able to quantify the benefits is relatively easy, right? You sort of do a pre-post, you look at the way the world was beforehand and the way it is today. And I imagine it frees up the time for these individuals to work on other things that might be, less monotonous, more high impact. And then along the way, you're also generating this exhaustive data that potentially can be mined for additional insights as well. So I think that's all very fascinating, and maybe be an area that a data science leader might not always be thinking about. There's no question in there. It's just a long ramble of just like, this is fascinating to me. So sorry about that, but
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think there is a wealth of knowledge that you can glean out of this data. And that's actually a really big project that we are working on now, which is we have all of this data. We have pushed some of this data into kind of data visualization tools, but how can we make those visualizations even more robust and then even more compelling to our executive leaders in relation to these kind of transformative projects that we're taking on. So really, how can we use this data to actually tell that story of digital transformation?
that's awesome. Well, Sidney, this has been very fascinating. I've learned a lot today. At the very least, I'm going to update my LinkedIn page over the weekend to get going there, so that I can start lining up those advisory opportunities. But I also learned a lot about RPA. I learned about your journey, and I think all of us should open our mind and hire from all sorts of different backgrounds. If anyone has like a tenth of the curiosity that you have, I think they could be, a fantastic, member of the team, and you might have a future DSL in your hands as well.
Yep, absolutely.
So great to have you. Thanks so much for being on the DSL podcast. And speaking of LinkedIn, if people are interested in chatting with you, can they link up with you on LinkedIn?
Yes, absolutely. So you will find me. I believe I'm one of the only Sidney Madison Prescotts on LinkedIn. And feel free. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. So feel free to
Awesome.
reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Sidney.